Hello, I'm Rex Schildhouse, and because things on the internet seem to lose their date references pretty quick, today is Monday, June 3rd, 2024. On Thursday, May 16th, 2024, we left on one of our vacations to go up and see a chunk of Nevada and Southern California before returning back down to Ramona. And one of those purposes was to tour the loneliest road in America, Nevada Highway, US Highway 50, from Baker and Great Basin National Park to Dalton and Carson City, Nevada. We'd first learned about this in the Ely, Nevada Northern Railway Museum. They have a sign up there, you're going to see it, and that made us aware of this. And it says, hey, get your passport, get your stamps, and we did. And when you get done, we'll send you a certificate. And how this kind of all started, and I'm going to read a chunk of this. How this all started was the July 1986 issue of Life magazine addresses US 50 from Ely to Fernley is the loneliest road in America. It's totally empty, says a AAA counselor. There are no points of interest. We don't recommend it. The 287-mile stretch of US 50 running from Ely to Fernley, Nevada passes 9 towns, 2 abandoned mining camps, a few gas pumps, and the occasional coyote. We warn all motorists not to drive there, says the AAA rep, unless they're confident of their survival skills. Well, game on. We wanted to see the area anyways. We were headed up to Ely, Nevada for two train rides, one which was their normal ride out to the copper mines, and the second one which was a stargazing special train ride, which I don't recommend. It was poorly planned. It was larger than a full moon on a very clear night, with telescopes that weren't real powerful and people that weren't real knowledgeable. It was okay. I won't do it again. Don't recommend it be done in the first place. Save the money, buy your own telescope, and do it yourself, or check with a local astronomy club. This was not good. Anyways, we did, and we didn't get all of the stamps because the only one we really missed was Baker. We drove right through Baker. You have to drive through Baker to get to Great Basin National Park, but we drove from Ely, where we were staying. We drove east on Friday, May 17th, to Great Basin National Park, which was kind of cool. You have to drive through Baker, which is a very small town. Most of these are small towns. You have to drive through Baker to get to Great Basin National Park's Lehman Cave Visitor Center. Back to Ely, Eureka, Austin, Fallon, Fernley, Dayton, and Carson City. So we got all of our stamps, and we've already taken the self-addressed business, no postage required postcard, and we're sending it in. And I will tell you that the stores, museums, places of interest that we stopped to have these stamps, all very friendly about this. And you're not going to be the only one. If you're doing this, you're not going to be the only one. We were in one of these little towns. I'm going to make up one of them to just put a name to it. We were in Austin, and I'm just making an assumption it was Austin. And this was not uncommon. We were in Austin, Nevada, which is absolutely nowhere. It's a very small town on the US Route 50. And I'm standing there with my passport, and I look around, and there's 4 or 5 other people in line, and half of them had passports out. And I asked the guy, I said, do you stamp passports, correct? Oh yeah, not a problem. Took it and stamped it in all the various places, because you stamp it on the route, you stamp it on the page and whatever, and handed it back to me. Hey, thanks for doing it. And he thanks me for doing it. They don't ask for money, they don't ask for purchases, they don't ask for anything. In Eureka, the place was closed. It was Saturday. The place was pretty much closed. They were prepping for a music fest because people were walking around with guitars and violins and banjos and whatever else, and they were prepping for a music fest later that day. And I walked into the Opera House because it was the only thing that was open, and asked the woman, which I forgot her name, she was an immigrant from Colombia, really nice. I asked her, I said, where can I get my passport stamped? We're trying to get our certificate. Oh, I stamp them. And she stamps it, and I said, well, we had wanted to see the Sentinel Museum, which is a museum about their local newspaper. She says, oh, I can open that up for you. Give me a minute. So I said, well, okay, we'll walk over there from our car and we'll meet you there. And for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, she walked us through the museum, telling us about the museum and the area and whatever else. Really cool visit. Really friendly town. So we had a lot of fun with this. If you're going to do it, I recommend you log on to their homepage, which I'll give you in the video. Log on to their homepage, get the passport. It's free. Everything on this is free. The other thing is, their homepage tells you a lot of things to see and do while you're in Nevada. And when we plan these vacations, I do a lot of research. And I'm having trouble finding these places. And this one here, this homepage, was probably the most useful. And I didn't properly use it. And you're going to see some other things that were brought up. On this homepage, things to do as you travel across US Route 50, the loneliest road in America. And as we were in the Carson City, capital of Nevada, Reno, biggest city in Nevada, I think, and Minden, which is also a quote-unquote big city. So maybe Las Vegas is the biggest city in Nevada. That's probably the biggest city in Nevada. Reno's probably second, and Carson City's probably third. I'm just making assumptions. Anyways, let's get on with the video. This was fun. I will tell you that US Route 50 is a beautiful road. We drove for, at times, 20 and 30 minutes before seeing another vehicle going either way, and occasionally the other vehicle, the other thing that we saw was a bicyclist going east while we were headed west. Let's get on with the video. This was really fun. We enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy it.
Our adventure across the loneliest road in America started with this sign in Ely, Nevada. We are up in Ely for the Nevada Northern Railway Museum, which is a really cool museum. And this sign is right next to the terminal. So I kind of got curious and I contacted them after reading it, and they sent us their kit, their passport kit, and we're scrolling through it. It's got all sorts of maps. Ours is already stamped. I don't have a quote-unquote unstamped, and we did the a stamp for every place in it. We went through Baker. We went from Baker to Dalton, and had a lot of fun with it. This is the URL for their homepage, and if you log into it, there's a lot of information there. It is really informative. If you're going to tour Nevada, if you're going to drive the US 50, highly recommend you go over there and spend some time, because there's a lot of information over there that's really accessible. There's quite a few individuals that are participating in this program, and we interacted with numerous of them, and extremely friendly. Really was. One of the pamphlets that they gave us was really helpful in setting this whole thing up and showing us where we're going to go. The only one that kind of kicked me is Fernley. Fernley seems to be a little bit off the track, but we still went up there, and we completed that particular run. So we drove from Great Basin National Park. To get there, you have to drive through Baker. Baker's just a little bit south of the US 50. So back to the US 50 from Great Basin National Park in Baker, and then back across. We did our initial trip out of Ely, headed east, and then came back to Ely for a train ride with the Nevada Northern, and then we proceeded west. There's two, I'm going to call them visitor centers for the Great Basin National Park that we found. One is for the Lehman Caves, which I highly recommend you get reservations for. I understand they're free. I'm not sure. We couldn't get them. They were closed up by the time we checked. Anyways, that visitor center is really nice and really complete, and they're talking about a whole lot of things, and it's kind of interesting. It's a huge set of caves. This is a view from the Lehman Caves Visitor Center looking out over the Great Basin. Majestic views. We walked through the area. This cabin was used kind of like a motel. I think it said the woman charged $1 a night for travelers coming through with their families. And on the trails, there's a lot of these whatever you want to call them, guides to tell you what you're looking at off in the far distance. Don't know if this is the same mountain, but it was an absolutely beautiful mountain. There is a lot of signage as you're walking the trails and markers telling you how far you've gone, so you can control it. Highly recommend you take a first aid kit and fluids with you on the walks, maybe snacks. This purple flower Joyce really likes, so I took a picture of it. Joyce wanted to see wildlife. The whole time we were on the trails, we were looking for bears, elk, deer, whatever else. We didn't even see a squirrel until we were coming back towards the visitor center, and about 100 yards away from the visitor center, this about 2.5-3 foot rattlesnake was crossing the path, and he was really irked. He was rattling up a storm, and we almost walked on top of him without seeing him, and Joyce saw her wildlife. This is one of the signs outside the visitor center for the Great Basin National Park. I guess it's the formal visitor center. The other visitor center, the one we started at, was for the caves, I guess, as I assume it. Really interesting. We walked inside. We spent a while there, and quite a few really nice displays about how life came about there, what the settlers of various times, Native Americans and the European type settlers, had to do to the area and how it was settled. And we had been to where the Golden Spike was, which is another historic park, and they've got this forgotten Winchester. Somebody had put a Winchester up against a tree, and it was found many years later still sitting there. Kind of interesting. Before we leave the Great Basin National Park, we drove some of the trails associated with the park, as well as walking some of them. We probably spent 6 hours, maybe 5-6 hours in the park, and this particular Osceola Ditch Trail, we drove up. I think we were, at this point it says elevation 7,750 feet is the top. We were above 9,000 feet on several of these trails. It's great to have cars now with the mass air sensors and things like that rather than carbureted. The car really performed well, and there was still snow up there, and we are talking May 17th, 2024. When we left the Lehman Caves Visitor Center, you have to drive back to Baker, Nevada, which is a very small town, and then go north to the formal Great Basin National Park Visitor Center. And we paused at a display on the side of the road put up evidently by the Eastern Nevada Landscape Coalition, and really informative. And it was talking about ranching and how the area was populated over the many years, tens of thousands of years. Really kind of cool. And as we left, we took one photo in Baker, and this is a abandoned, restaurant made out of a Pullman type railroad car. Baker is not real big. They're not on the loneliest road in America, Passport, but we stopped at the Ward charcoal ovens, which are just east of Ely, Nevada, as I remember. And It was a really interesting tour, and I have a video of what's going on here, but you can pause and read the two screens that explained what these were. It was really cool. The floor of the ovens is a pea gravel, round gravels, so they shift under your feet, and the degree of echo in these structures is phenomenal. And if you move away from the center up to the edge, the degree of echo changes significantly. Where Joyce is standing, she can hardly hear me, and yet where I'm standing, the sound is thundering as I very quietly try to turn 360 degrees with small steps, and you're going to hear that in the video. Even though it's on the loneliest road in America passport, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time showing you Ely, Nevada. It's a fairly good-sized town. It is also the most isolated incorporated city in the United States of America. No other incorporated city is farther away from its nearest incorporated neighbor than Ely, Nevada. And the Nevada Northern Railway Museum is a great museum. We rode behind the steamer this time. They finally had it running, and then we did the stargazing train later that night. And with the stargazing train, because it was just past a full moon, it was actually a bit of a disappointment. We're traveling west from Ely, Nevada towards Dalton. It's going to take us 2 days to get there because we've got stops along the way. And one of the things that absolutely impressed us is this is a lot of 2-lane, sometimes 4-lane highway through absolutely desolate, unoccupied land. And you appreciate why they call it the loneliest highway in the USA. You go for, we would go for half an hour before we'd get a car to pass us. Our first stop after leaving Ely, Nevada is Eureka, and at Eureka we showed up on a Saturday and traveling west, and the town was pretty much closed. Not a real big town, nice town. And I went over to the Opera House, found a woman sitting at the desk, and if everything seemed to be locked up, and asked her if she knew where I could get my passport stamped, and she said, "Oh, I can do that," and extremely friendly. And I apologize because I forgot her name. She was from Colombia, South America, and I commented that we had wanted to see the Sentinel Museum, and she said, "Oh, I can open that up for you and give you a tour." So we went over and did see the Sentinel Museum. It was an absolute fantastic visit. We're probably in Eureka, California, or Eureka, Nevada, for probably 2.5 hours because she was such a courteous guide. Really appreciated the tour, and it was a super museum about the newspaper and the town. Our next passport stamp was Austin, Nevada, and for some reason we didn't even get a photo of it. Extremely small town, and as I recall, it was on a S-curve coming down the back of a slope. But these are just pictures, random pictures of more of the loneliest road in America, US Route 50, as we headed west from Ely to Dalton, actually from Ely to Naval Air Station, Fallon, Nevada on Saturday, May 17, 2024. Our next stop on US Route 50, the loneliest road in the US, in America, was Fallon, Nevada, and we did 2 different museums in Fallon. The first one was the Churchill County Museum, which was really, really cool. And among other things, the Lincoln Highway is just south of Chicago. Driven on it many, many times. We found the Lincoln Highway in numerous areas, including out by the Great Basin. It's well identified. So the Churchill County Museum was a place that we had to pay admission to, or recommended that we pay admission to, contribution, however you want to phrase it. Really, really interesting place. Covered a lot of information about the history of the area and the events that went down, and I'm not going to address them individually or whatever, but in the museum they had a lot of Native American lifestyles. How did the Native Americans survive in the area? When the Europeans showed up, how did the Europeans modify the area for their survival, for their standard of living, for their way of life along the way? Bad guys, good guys were addressed off in one area, which was kind of cool. And they talked about the last hanging in the city or the county or the state of Nevada, which was kind of interesting. One of the things they reminded us of was don't forget to get into the annex in the back of the museum, behind the museum, which had a number of wagons, carts, carriages, fire trucks, whatever else. Really, really cool museum. Had really good signage. Really enjoyed the visit there. I think we spent about 3 hours going through this museum before we moved on. Super place to stop. Really, really enjoyed it. We spent Saturday night, May 18th, 2024, at the Naval Air Station, Fallon, Nevada Navy Lodge, and we toured for a very specific purpose. We toured the aircraft that they had on display at Naval Air Station, Fallon, and when we got to our suite, which was 101, we found the McDonnell F4 Phantom II photo on our door. In all of the suites, we looked at several of them. All of the suites had the same aircraft, same picture on it. And the squadron is 154, and it's USS Midway. I was assigned to the USS Midway for 5.5 years. I didn't find anything that correlated 154 to the Midway. It might have been. We toured the aircraft that were on display, and most of them had good signage, and I'm going to show you the picture of the aircraft and then the signage and follow it, so if you want to read about it, you can stop it. I do have some issues with the signage, and one of those issues is going to be when you get to the F4, and I'm not going to try and sync the audio to the photos, but the F4 is the Phantom II, and that's because McDonnell earlier in life had a Phantom aircraft, and then McDonnell and Douglas merged to become McDonnell Douglas, and they continued to produce the Phantom, but the Phantom is correctly a McDonnell aircraft. A lot of aircraft there, all put up on display. People ask, how can you afford to put military aircraft up on display? Aircraft have finite lifetimes. You can only fly them so long. They start rattling, they start breaking, they just become obsolete. They've been damaged, they've been overstressed. It's taking more man hours to keep it in the air than it's worth. So there's a number of factors. How do you get enemy aircraft? From defectors. You buy them on the open market. You acquire them when you take over a territory. So like right now there's a number of Soviet aircraft, Russian built, and the Soviet bloc countries built aircraft, Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, flying in the United States by private owners. The other thing you can do in a museum is you can paint one side of an aircraft, as they did with the F-86 Saberjet, in one paint scheme, and paint the other side as you so desire. When you get to the MiG-23 Flogger, I have several photos of it, and the reason I have it is because the Flogger has an interesting couple of features to it. It was designed to operate from rough, semi-prepared fields, and it has FOD deflectors, debris deflectors, on its wheels, on its tires, on its landing gear, so that it doesn't throw stuff up into its intake. Kind of a cool and interesting feature. There was no signage for the Grumman EA-6B Prowler 502. If you look at what's called the Modex, the fuselage, the call sign number on the side of the aircraft, and what it was, why it didn't have that, I have no idea. The FA-18 Hornet, which was Modex 300, there was also no signage. It was off on the side. It was across the street from the aircraft that were on display. The UH-1 Iroquois, the Army's tradition is to name helicopters after Indian tribes, and they don't exactly do that to all their aircraft. So the UH-1 originally started its life as the HU-1, HU-1. Well, you have HUI, which is, if you pronounce it, it's Huey, and that's how the aircraft acquired the Huey name. But the aircraft is actually Iroquois, and when McNamara changed how the U.S. military Department of Defense aircraft are numbered, it changed from HU-1 to UH-1, utility helicopter first mode, first one. There were a number of aircraft parked around Naval Air Station Fallon. The North American RA-5 Vigilante, it was a reconnaissance aircraft after one of the SALT type agreements, the weapons limits agreements. There was an A7, A4. There was a SPAD sitting on a parking pad out by the exchange of the commissary or BOQs. The A1, the AD1, and there was another UH-1 rescue helicopter parked out there as well, painted in its orange and white, typical rescue. So there were a number of aircraft at Naval Air Station Fallon. A nice place to stop by if you can gain access. Probably takes you 45 minutes to an hour to see all of them. Throughout much of Nevada, so these are slightly out of order, we found a number of veterans memorials, veteran appreciation sites. The Veterans Memorial Park dedicated by ATC Division was right outside of Naval Air Station Fallon, but a lot of the other veterans sites that we located were there were quite a few. I was absolutely amazed. For us, Fernley was a blow-through. We stopped there for breakfast, intended to get a couple of pictures that said Fernley, Nevada. Didn't find any convenient and realized that we were out of town before we got them. Moving through Fernley into Dayton, the same sort of thing. Dayton was just outside of Carson City, the capital of Nevada, and trying to get photos for to show that we were in Dayton. All of a sudden we realized we were through Dayton, and we were just kind of taking pictures of roads and whatever else along the way, and then we made it into Carson City. So with Carson City, our truck across the loneliest road in America, US Route 50 through Nevada, from Baker, the area of Baker, because Baker is actually several miles south of the US 50, and the Great Basin National Park, we made it into Carson City, Nevada. And because we were operating out of Ely, Nevada, we went from Ely, Nevada east to Great Basin National Park, and then came back to Ely, rode the trains that we had tickets for, which was the afternoon train out to the copper mines, and then the evening train for the Star Trip, which I was not impressed by the Star Trip. I'm impressed by Nevada Northern Railway Museum. The stargazing special train was a bit of a disappointment. I think they need to work on it a little bit. So we made the stamps. We were in every one of the sites for the passport, and it was a lot of fun. Everybody we talked to had was smiling and enjoying the fact that we had our passports, and we would be standing at checkout counters and other people would have their passports too. So it's not a once every 2-3 weeks or maybe once a day these people are seeing these passports come through. There's several of them, and we talked to several people that were on the road with us at places like restaurants and museums and wherever else, and they had their passports where they wanted to get them. So it was a lot of fun. Kind of having fun with this as I wrap it up, and I hope you've enjoyed it, because if you're going to tour Nevada, I highly recommend you check into their homepage, and I'll show you their homepage again. Sign up for a passport, but more importantly, their homepage gives you a lot of really good information about touring along US Route 50 through Nevada. And when we go on vacations, I do a lot of internet searches trying to find places of interest that we want to see, museums primarily associated with aviation, with automobiles, with technology, with history, the natural resources, the national parks, national forests, things like that. And it's tough to find, quite honestly. And you get back from someplace and somebody will say, well, did you go there? I didn't even know it existed. So their homepage is a really good source of a lot of information about touring along US Highway 50 through Nevada. And with that, our passports are stamped. Our passport is stamped, and they even give you a self-addressed stamped, no postage required form to send in and get your certificate. So we're now going to fill that in and send it in and get our certificate, because this was fun. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this video helps you. I wish other people would do this on their highways, but how many people can say they have the loneliest highway in the United States of America's contiguous 48 states? Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.